Welcome to the Fut-Afrique channel, where every single week we get to talk about all things rugby. Yes, the 2023 Rugby World Cup is currently being hosted in France, but today we're doing something a little bit different. We're focusing on women's rugby. Our ladies played in Cape Town this past weekend, so I thought it's fitting that I bring a former professional rugby player, and she's also a sports broadcaster. Her name is Laila Harrison. Laila, how are you doing?
Aaron, so good to be here. It's so good to hang out with you. I mean, I said it feels like we're best friends. This has been a long time coming.
It's been a while. I've been chatting to you for about the last few years about all things rugby, and now we finally get to do a show together.
It's nice to be here. It's definitely nice to be chatting women's rugby as well, and getting that word out there. And then we all know it's the big one that's happening in France at the moment as well. So it's a big year of rugby this year, and I hope that both our men and our women can bring it home.
Definitely. Let's talk about your playing career. Before we talk about the ladies' performance this past weekend, take me back to when you actually started your journey with rugby, because, I mean, in my high school, we never had a ladies' team when it came to rugby.
Same. I was actually a cricket player, so I played cricket. I played first team cricket with our men or with our boys at school, and then I went on to play Marty's women's cricket. And so after that didn't work out for me, someone actually approached me and said, would you be interested in playing women's rugby? And you know, long story short, we started at Stellenbosch University. We started the women's rugby team that actually won the Varsity Cup this year. And then, you know, from there things have kind of just grown, ended up moving to the side of the world, and I started playing for the Bulls, who have now this year amazingly become one of the first professional women's sides, or not one of the first professional women's side in South Africa. And yeah, I had the opportunity to play with them for 2 seasons, and now that I've decided to spray paint my boots gold, I've found a love for sports broadcasting, and especially just to put kind of this light and shine this light on women's rugby and what women's rugby is and what women's rugby in this country can be. So yeah, it felt like a very long career, and a lot of us that have stopped playing now and we're seeing where things are going have said that this is exactly what we've wanted. A lot of people ask me, don't I want to go back to playing? And I said I've done what I could do for the game between the 4 lines, and now it's kind of trying to take it on and champion what we started between the 4 lines, outside the 4 lines. So you know, blessed and happy to be trying to just get women's rugby out into the world.
Let's talk about what needs to change or improve for women's rugby. Yes, we have seen sponsors jumping on board, one of them being F&B, you know, supporting the ladies as well ahead of the Rugby World Cup. In terms of the work that you're doing, you are very close to the players. What do they need in terms of support?
Yeah, so I just touched on the Bulls Daisies becoming the first team in South Africa to become professional, and so all the other unions have to jump on board with that. We still see women having to go to work during the day, come home at 4, start food for their kids, and then grab their togs, run out onto the field, train until about 8 p.m. in the evening, come home, clean your kids, make sure they've done their homework, sort everything out for tomorrow, the next day, sort your own workout for the next day, and then just kind of have that repetitive cycle, and then still go and play or be expected to perform on a match day on a Saturday. So all of the unions, and yes, the Daisies are currently one of the biggest feeders to that Springbok side, but you've got the Western Province women that are feeding it, you've got the EP Queens, the Sharks, every single one of these unions are feeding it, and so women who are currently not still being paid to play and are just purely doing it for the love of the game, you know, it can't be like that anymore. And I think the Daisies have shown exactly what can come from if you do invest time and money in your players. You know, it's not large amounts of money yet. No one again is asking for equal pay, and that's the question that everyone's been asking is, have you not thought equal pay? And I think everyone has just said we don't want equal pay, we just want to be paid the equal amount or the equal percentage that our men are getting out of these different revenue streams. So whether it be from media, whether it be from sponsors, whether it be, you know, my players, all of those things that are feeding into this one big kitty that the men are getting. The women want the exact same percentage out of it. But again, we still have a long way to go. The Springbok women are not a professional side. Even though we are the national team, we're not deemed a professional side yet because none of the players are being paid to play full-time. All 33 or 35 of them are not being paid to play full-time on a contractual basis. So that's where funders come in. That's where FNB decided to step up for the women, you know. And we need more of that. We need more people coming in saying they're willing to invest in women's rugby and what women's rugby can be in South Africa, because it's very easy to sit behind a keyboard and type, oh, but these girls aren't performing. Oh, they're losing 65-0 or 75-0 to England. Yes, but you're looking at an England player who has 82 caps for a country. Meantime, that is the total amount of caps we have in our whole Springbok women's side. So many things have gone right. I think there are still many more that have to go right to get us to the level where we deserve to be playing.
Most certainly. Let's talk about where the Springbok ladies squad is currently at in terms of world ranking, but also like how we compare in terms of player to player. Because yes, we performed well at the Rugby World Cup that was hosted in New Zealand, but we could have done a little bit better. You work with the players. How could you compare our team versus some of the big nations like England and New Zealand?
It's almost incomprehensible, and you can't compare them. And it touches exactly on what we were saying versus a full-time program that's happening versus ladies just going into camp every now and then being expected to perform at international level. And we'll probably touch on it, but with WXV2 that's coming into play in October, so WXV1, XV2 and XV3, this now allows more game time for the women. So that is why I touched on the caps earlier, because our ladies aren't capped enough. So the most capped player at the moment is sitting on 36 caps.
Sure.
And so you haven't even touched on a 50 cap yet, and you're the most experienced player compared to the women in England, the women in New Zealand, Canada, all of those places who are playing with 50 plus caps and above. So it's purely going to come down to game time. It's going to come down to how much we can get on the field, how much time the Springbok women can play together and play competitive rugby. And this is why I brought up WXV2, because WXV2 now allows us to play against teams in similar rankings to us. So we're going to be playing against teams that are lower ranked than us, as well as teams that are higher ranked than us. We're looking at Italy, you look at Scotland that we're playing against, and then we're also playing against Samoa and the USA. So it's going to be interesting to see. The ladies have been putting in the hard work. They're currently busy playing their warm-up tests. So it's actually going to be so great to see the hard work come into fruition. They are going through a bit of a change. They had such a good set squad in 2021, which included both sevens players and 15s players. But because the sevens players have now qualified for the HSBC World 7 Series, they're on their own now. So we've completely branched off our two codes, yeah. And so the sevens code is going and they're training together, and the 15s code is going and training together. So the 15s have actually lost a lot of what were their star players in 2021 to the sevens code, because the ladies were allowed to choose. And those that have contracts, obviously if you're contracted from a sevens basis, you've got to go to sevens. If you're contracted from a 15s basis, you've got to stay at 15s. So that's why I think it's also one of those never fear come in October, when maybe things don't go our way, because they are still going through this new development phase where they've brought a lot of new youngsters in. They've gotten this IPL that's gone past, they've called a lot of players up from the IPL, because they're trying to create depth in their squad because of how many players they've had to sacrifice to the sevens.
Let's talk about this past weekend. We have now spoken about the difficulties that the ladies are facing, but I also believe that we need to celebrate 100%. Where the ladies are doing very, very well. Yeah. This past weekend, they actually beat Kenya with a 77-12 point scoreline. And this coming weekend, they're taking on the Barbarians. Talk to me about the previous game, and also what can we expect this weekend? Yeah,
so our previous game was, just a completely very hard physical game. The ladies played Kenya in the Rugby Africa tournament in June, July in Madagascar, where they also beat them. So that's where we won the Rugby Africa tournament to qualify to play for WXV2. And so there was towards the end of the first half, I started getting really nervous, because it almost looked like Kenya started getting everything into place and started getting their shapes into place. But I think what Coach Louis Kuhn was really proud of was the full 80-minute effort that the ladies gave. So it was really in that second half where they surged and they did really, really well. So you could almost see all the gears started fitting together. Everyone started understanding what their roles were in that moment. That those kind of first game jitters, everyone's got to get back and just kind of get the ball throwing around a bit. It was a great game from their side. Lots of things to work on, and that's the thing. I always say it's always good to have things to work on post the match, because otherwise you're kind of just sitting in this lull phase where no one actually knows what they're doing. So lots of things to work on. Barbarians this weekend, it's going to be a tough one. I got the Barbarians team list that's coming.
How's it looking?
It's looking dangerous. There's very, very, very experienced players that the Barbarians are bringing. Lots of English players, lots of Welsh players. I saw a couple Spaniards in there. And then some Rugby World Cup winners are coming through as well from New Zealand and from the English. So, it's going to be a tough task. They've played them in 2021 at Twickenham, unfortunately losing 60 points to 5. But I think it was such a good experience for them to be able to play against these teams that have not actually been playing together for long, but they understand the concept of rugby. They understand what needs to happen. They understand the next phase of play. So, and that's what the Barbarians squad is. And I think in 2021, the Barbarians head coach was saying, or the Barbarians management was saying, they're going to start looking to South Africa to draw players into the Barbarians squad as well. So I think Saturday is going to be a very, very, very big test for them. But it's exciting because that's the kind of players and the quality of players you're going to be playing against come October for WXV. So yeah, it's gonna be a good one. I don't think I'm gonna have a voice.
I'd love to put you on the spot. Before you lose your voice this weekend, let's talk about a score prediction. We love betting on the show. We know that our audience love making a little bit of money in terms of sports betting. Give us a score prediction and tell us why.
For the Barbarians game?
Yes.
I really do. I do back our women 100%. I do back that it's going to be a much tighter contested game than it was in Twickenham 2 years ago. I think what the ladies have done between then and now is actually just been growth. However, I do feel I do feel, look, you can't beat experience, and on the day experience is gonna count the most. Unfortunately, we lost a very, very key player, Lusanda Dumke, on Saturday. I think she's out with a concussion for a couple of weeks.
Sure.
So we're missing the big names. We're missing Aseza Hele. You're missing Lusanda Dumke now. Sizopila Solonsi is also out with an Achilles injury, who are all such drivers. In the midfield, you're missing Tumisa Kawe. You're missing I forgot her name now, but it's such key players that actually get you over the gain line. And that's why we're saying we're kind of breeding this new blood. So I think they're going to be up against experience, and I think the Barbarians will take this one, but I definitely don't think it's going to be 65.
Okay.
So that's all I'm saying. A lot closer than it was 2 years ago, definitely.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us as we're discussing women's rugby. And of course, I know that you'll be out in Cape Town this weekend supporting the ladies. And I know that you'll also be holding the mic, hosting people at the stadium.
I'm going to be frustrating people.
Well, not frustrating people, keeping them happy.
Keeping them happy.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you.